Hello, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope that you had a wonderful 2023. Recently, in the last few years, I've been really trying to make a good assorted mix of books that I would really like to put the effort in to read. Books that have been sitting on my bookshelves for too long. I bought them with high hopes and expectations, and they've just been languishing there on the bookshelves. And so every time I do these are the books I want to read, I'm always trying to challenge myself a little bit. So let's begin. Get rid of all that goddamn preamble. The year started off with a bang. Émile Zola, the masterpiece. This is the first novel that I've read by Émile Zola. I made a review of this one because I just loved it. So if you want to see the full review, you can see it. I don't know. There's a link where you can look at it, but don't go there yet. Watch this video first and then go back and watch that video later. Watch this one first. Émile Zola, he was one of the original writers who pioneered this modernist style. Let's have the real world in the books. Let's get some of that dirt in there. And this book, you can see that, even though it's an old book, surprisingly not graphic, but authentic. There were some things in there that made my eyebrows go up. I thought, oh my, I didn't realize they could write about such things at that point. The story is about an artist who is trying to create his grand masterpiece. However, he's painting in a style which is too challenging for the audience of his time. Even though we suspect that he's brilliant and genius, he is not in any way appreciated, and mostly he's derided. He's laughed at. Like quite a lot of truly pioneering artists were in their day. Like if you remember that Van Gogh, I think, only sold 2 paintings during his lifetime, and they were probably out of pity. So this was a wonderful book about a man with an artistic vision who couldn't make any money. But that never stopped him, that he worked himself to the very end trying to create this grand vision that he had. And that was all he cared about, as a true artist would. First Émile Zola I've ever read. Completely love it. Everybody said if you love Balzac, you're going to love Zola. And everyone, thank you. You were completely right. It's a fantastic book. Zola is very famous because he wrote a 20-novel series called the Rougon Macquart series. 20 books, big books. I think this is number 14 or number 16 in that series. The thing is that I would like to read them sequentially. I would like to read them from book 1 to 20. It's just that right now with my university studies, it's really hard to do that because I think that probably will take 3 months to read 20 novels. Because I'm a university student, that is going to be very difficult to do, but I think there's the best way to do it, to get the grand scheme. So from France, we went to the other country that I just am in awe of when it comes to the writers, to Japan. The Makioka Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki, and this was just divine. It's very hard for me to explain why I love this novel so much because very little happens. There are 4 Makioka sisters. The first 2 are married. Yukiko is not married, and the priority is on getting her a husband because she's already 30 and she's getting to be a bit, left on the shelf. And the fourth, the youngest sister, Teiko, she already has a beau, but they cannot get married before Yukiko gets married because it's just not allowed in the traditional Japanese culture that the younger daughter marries before the older one. And so this is putting a lot of pressure on the family, like we need to find Yukiko a husband. That's what this whole book is about. They find this one bachelor and they think he's a good match because he's rich, even though he's a bit ugly. They find another bachelor and they think, well, maybe he's okay. He's a little bit old and he's got 2 grown children, but they're grown, so they're out. And maybe it won't look so nice to have such an old man married to Yukiko, who's very fantastically beautiful. And so there's all this wrangling in the family to find her a husband, and it all has to be managed in this very polite Japanese style where you can't make any broad, brusque declarations. You've got to do it gently, always sort of moving behind the scenes. This is an amazing book. It is certainly going to be one of the best books I've read of 2023. I'm going to make a video of my favorite books of 2023. Maybe you're a little bit intimidated by 530 pages. Like, just when you get into it, all of the characters, they seem like real people to me. There's just something so subtle, perfect, beautiful about this Japanese writing. Nothing really drastic needs to happen when the writing is this good. You don't need dragons and nuclear war and vampires. Like, you've got real human existence, and it's about the style. That's what literature is all about. And this is, goddamn, it's so good. Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser. I'm very happy I read this one. This is actually, I'm doing my list videos, the Modern Library 100 Greatest English Written Novels of the 20th Century. This is one of the books on the list that I had not read. I think there were 7 or 6 books that I had not read, and this was one, and I finally crossed it off the list. It's quite good. I'll read you the first line. When Caroline Meeber boarded the afternoon train for Chicago, her total outfit consisted of a small trunk, a cheap imitation alligator skin satchel, a small lunch in a paper box, and a yellow leather snap purse containing her ticket, a scrap of paper with her sister's address in Van Buren Street, and $4 in money. Caroline, goes to Chicago to make a life for herself. She's single, she's from the countryside, her sister has gone to Chicago, her sister's married, she has a baby, and she's going to be staying with her sister until she gets set up. Her priority is not really to get a husband. She's just eager to have something of life. Like, she's tired, bored, fed up with the countryside, small village life, and she wants some of that big city Chicago action. She moves in with her sister. Her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, is just dreadfully dull. All they care about is saving the money. So they're charging her to rent out the spare room in their apartment. And you can really sense that they're unnecessarily fixated on keeping the money. Well, she runs into a fella on the train, and he might be a bit of one of those men that chases after women. Aside from her boring sister and very boring brother-in-law, he's the only man she's met who has shown her any spunk, as they say. Not in that way. She calls him, show me some life. I'm here in Chicago. I'm living this dreadful existence. She gets a job in a factory, and the scene in the factory is just so disheartening. The noise, the other women in the factory, they're so coarse, just gossiping and talking about the boys. Oh, what do you think about Kim? That life, where she's operating some kind of a machine. I think she operates a machine that punches the holes in the shoe leather where your shoelaces would be tied. And that's her job. She's just punching the holes. And it's just so awful and tragic. But she escapes. And she has some adventures with men. Quite good. Bit of classic American literature here. I was a bit on the fence about how much I enjoyed it. It was good. However, it left me feeling a bit, I'm not sure. I'll read that again one day. So where do we go next? We go to England. One of my patrons sent me this book, Wuthering Heights. Somehow there is this mythos around Wuthering Heights, that this is some kind of a great love story. That is not at all true. This is not a love story. This is more of a revenge novel than anything else. Try to do it as quickly as possible. A man goes away, comes back, and he's brought this kind of gypsy boy with him. We don't know why. We suspect that the gypsy boy was kind of a foundling, and he decided to bring him back to the English countryside to kind of make a proper British gentleman out of him. And they live at Wuthering Heights. That's the name of the manor. And the next manor, there's this, beautiful young girl named Catherine. And the gypsy boy, Heathcliff, and Catherine have a very strong friendship, which some people might say is love. I think is a bit of childish infatuation. Of course, you're going to be in love with the only person of the opposite sex who is even slightly, relatively, of the same age that you are. Did I put that correctly? She is the only girl for miles. So yeah, I guess they're going to be in love because they have just goddamn proximity. But at Wuthering Heights, the man who brought this Heathcliff home, he already has a son. And Catherine tells him very plainly, I'm going to marry him because he's proper. He's white. He's rich. His family has a name. Our two manor estates are side by side, so when we get married, they will be unified into this massive country estate. Yeah, I'm going to marry him. It's very hard for me to call this a love story when she is so heartlessly calculating. Yeah, I'm going to marry him. Like, yes, maybe I love you, but I can't marry you because you're some kid that this man brought home. You're like there's a phrase in Hungarian, zsákba macska, which it's a cat from a sack, zsákba macska. So she breaks his heart. He disappears and he comes back with all the money and he decides to crush both of the families. Her family, because she dismissed him, and that family because she married that boy. And so he just destroys both of these families ruthlessly, like with some poisonous vengeance. It really took me aback because everything you read about this book, the romance, the love story, and it's not like that. It's like a revenge. It's like, man, Quentin Tarantino could have directed this. It's nuts. Like the way he treats his own son is abysmal. Like the kid is just broken and abused, and you know that his father's just like demented his mind. But I was very happy to read it. I mean, it is one of the great classics of English literature. It's just that I don't know why everybody talks about it being such a love story. It's messed up, and that's why you should read it. Now, I didn't want to say this at the beginning of the video, but all of the best books came at the beginning of the year. And if you're still watching the video, I wouldn't even feel bad if you stopped watching right now because it's all downhill after Wuthering Heights, appropriately. Well, I guess I just read all the good books first. Haruki Murakami, Kafka on the Shore. Man, it's bad. Bad writing. The story is fantastic, and I don't mean that in a positive way. I just mean it is full of fantasy. It's really very uncommon for me to make a video talking about how much I hate a book. Like, I really have to get some bile out, do some venting, heavy venting. Like, the book has to be like a mess, and this really is a mess. I made a video of how much I hated this book and why, very specifically why. Well, and Murakami is so goddamn popular. It's because they've made all of these bubblegum and popcorn colored covers that make it look like, it's fun. It's nice to have these on your shelves. It's just a bunch of marketing bullshit. Probably the people who buy these books don't even read them, but this is just perfectly dreadful. Like, it is filled with some of the worst writing I've ever read in what could be considered literature. And that, when people talk about what is literature, it's about the literary style, and that is pretty much the whole ball game right there. It's about the style, how it is written. It doesn't matter about the story. The Makioka sisters is a very, very plain, simple story. Wuthering Heights is, quite a dramatic. The masterpiece is relatively simple. An artist is just consumed with the idea of this passion for making his art. It's not about the story at all. It's not the plot. The plot, is nice for us because it carries us along, but it's the style, the beautiful writing. And this doesn't have that. The writing is shit, childish, juvenile, very self-satisfied, self-centered, obnoxious writing. You should not read Murakami, and I really hope he disappears. Like, he's been elevated to the status of this great Japanese writer. He's not. Like, he's nothing. He's the Japanese Stephen King. So from there to Japan, we went to Russia, and I thought I was going to enjoy this. When you read Russian literature, you're going to get those deep Russian emotions. You've got to go from the mountains down to the subterranean water that travels beneath the land, and you've got to meet every single peasant. You've got to learn every history, and sometimes it's wonderful. The previous year, I read Anna Karenina, and I was very pleasantly surprised to read that. This novel is about a wealthy man who is living off of his peasants who work in the countryside. It's something that's a bit hard for me to understand. I guess it's not really too different from today's capitalism, but these Russian people with their countryside estates, all of the peasants worked for them, and The money just came in and supported their lifestyle. But you had to go and you had to put the fear of God into those peasants, or else they would, rob you blind. But he's not. He's desperately lazy. He wakes up late every day. All he wants to do is sleep. A sleepy, bored man who does nothing. Nothing. He really does nothing. And periodically his friends come to try to prod him into existence. But he really resists them. Like, he doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to go for lunch. He doesn't want to go to a ball. He just wants to sleep. And the first chapter is quite good, or the first book 1, is quite good because it's all about that. It's about him not wanting to leave his apartment, even though the owner of the apartment is basically kicking him out to do, huge renovations, and then they're going to be selling the apartment building to someone else. And he really has to leave. And that's the main thrust of the first book, that what am I going to do? And he doesn't want to do anything. Like, he just keeps trying to close his eyes to the existence that's pounding on his door. But because of this, he has to go out to his country estate to manage his farm. And then he meets a woman and he falls in love. And this is awful. It's awful. Because it's one of those, I saw her and I was instantly in love, and I just thought that I would kill myself instantly if I could just kiss the hem of her skirt. And and when I saw her and she frowned at me, it felt like my entire soul was collapsing. On and on and on with this love stuff. Like, one day she smiles, overjoyed for dozens and dozens of pages. The next day she's a bit dour, and he's crushed for dozens and dozens of pages. It does get good in the second half because he's conned. His inherent laziness leads him to make some very bad decisions by some people who are trying to rob him, and they do. And that is good. However, it's a bit hard to take. He's not a character that we enjoy. Like, he didn't have much to start with. Like, maybe he had a lot of money, but his life was pretty awful. And now he's being robbed of his money. So all he's got left is his awful existence. 500 pages. The long chapters where he's in love and it's just all this love stuff is just awful. And I didn't enjoy that. But the actual, I just said plot is not important, but it's so plodding. I read it. So I was saving this one because I'm a huge fan of Balzac. And I knew that I'd kind of used up all the best books at the beginning of the year, so I was saving this one. And also, I really do try to, mix it up country to country. You don't want to read too much Russian stuff. You might do something scandalous like start wearing a beret. You don't want to read too much French stuff. You might, do something really pretentious like eating escargot. Don't do it. Eugène Grandet, loved it so much. The Black Sheep, almost as much. It was a little bit more convoluted, longer and more complicated. And this, I didn't love it as much as I really hoped that I would. It's a little bit too much of a mess. It's quite melodramatic. I did a big review of this one. There's a link to it right there. It's just that I can't imagine a man bankrupting his entire family, the whole family fortune, to get some pussy action. He's dated actresses, he's dated young women, girls. He kept them as his playthings, but then he meets a lady and she sucks him dry. I still enjoyed it. Maybe I force myself to enjoy it a little bit because I love Balzac. I will say that if you're interested in reading Balzac, do not read this one first, because I think it really helps a lot if you already love Balzac to then read this one. If I had have started here, I never would have begun my love affair with Balzac. I'm happy that I read it, but it's not his best. I am not excited about this one. To America. It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. My feelings about this book is that you need to have a degree in political science to really appreciate this book. Perhaps even a master's degree in early 20th century American political science, specifically the 1930s. Very simply, is what might happen if a fascist dictator became the American president. Because simple people, uneducated people, voted for someone who said very popular things that simple people really respond to. And so all the simpletons in America voted for the person who clearly had no good intentions with running the American state. And he got elected and instantaneously enacted his fascist regime. The first half of the book was very hard going for me because there are many references to real people. And some names I got, others I didn't. And I didn't really understand too much of what was happening in American politics in that time. And something about the style I didn't enjoy too much. Sinclair Lewis has a style that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is exactly. It's just something about, he likes to throw too much color into the sentences. He really likes to get very specific with his descriptions of things. And some people like that. I don't like it. I think it personally, I find the color too jarring. I find it too distracting. I would rather a more restrained style, which carries the reader along without all of these splashes of color or humor or, references upon references. That was a style. It's not a style that I enjoy reading. The second half of the book, when the fascist becomes the American president, that's good. It's just that it's kind of horrible to read America turning into Nazi Germany. Concentration camps, gulags, special branches of the police and the secret police who are constantly watching everybody. They close down all of the faculties at the university, and they're only going to teach the main thing that they're going to be teaching at university is sports and military drills. Well, it was pretty terrifying because you think it could happen. And now, here is where I have to make a terrible admission. Today is December 23rd. I wasn't able to read these. That one, that's how far I got, page 130. This one, I looked at a little bit, and man, it's awful. Why didn't I read these books? Well, it was a particularly heavy reading list at university this past year. So I take 3 semesters a year, and I take mainly English classes, but I also take some creative writing classes because I'm a writer, or at least I do have aspirations to be one. And it was really a huge amount of reading this semester. I read a lot of Shakespeare, a lot of classic stuff. So I wasn't able to do a lot of personal reading for my own pleasure, even for my own glorious YouTube channel. I'm going to keep reading this one. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to read this book to the end. It's okay. It's just it's very, very slow going and tedious. She really, man, she drags it out. Okay, I'm 130 pages into a 450-page novel. All right, well, so the first third, and it's just come on, get round to the point. Don't write one of it's not some epic that needs all of this. It's just when an author wants to put all of it in there. There's a woman and she's an artist and she lives like a bit of a hermit. She does the cooking and she goes fishing and she does this and she does that. And it's come on, cut out all that personal stuff. We don't need it. And it's not helping the story at all. Yeah, we get it. She's a hermit. She's self-sufficient. She doesn't want to be bothered with society. Don't keep droning on about how she went foraging for some edible lettuce for the evening meal, or how she went fishing for certain particular fish, and then she was naming all of the different types of the seaweed. It's just, get to it, which has made it very difficult for me to get to reading it. I'll finish it. It's long-winded and it's a bit self-serving, I feel, from the author. And this, well, it's supposed to be one of these great comedic novels, but it's comedic in the way that it's like this. Writing like this is supposed to be what the comedy is. Chapter 9. I solemnly declare to all mankind that the above dedication was made for no one prince, prelate, pope, or potentate, duke, marquis, earl, viscount, or baron of this or any other realm in Christendom, nor has it yet been hawked about or offered publicly or privately, directly or indirectly, to any one person or personage, great or small, but is honestly a true virgin dedication, untried on upon any soul living. Boy, isn't that a barrel of monkeys? Well, God knows what the hell was happening in the world in 1700. I'll put this back on the shelf, and maybe when I'm ancient, I will try to pick it up again. But probably by that point, the world will become so electronic and computerized, and we'll all just have the internet operating in our brains all the time. Probably it will just eventually become impossible to read this book. But it's awful. I mean, it's 650 pages, and it's just that whole high-handed, oh boy, isn't it funny to write sentences like this? Hubba hubba. So that's the 2023 TBR. Man, it started off so well and it just went downhill midway. Best books? Certainly this, number one. Easily number one. Number two? Definitely number two. Very much looking forward to reading this one again, especially in sequence with this series. And in third place, I'd say it's a tie between these two, because I enjoyed both of them. Just this one, I think, has a lot of very misleading reputation about what it actually is. This whole love story, that's nonsense. This is about some kid who gets a stick up his ass and decides that he's going to destroy these two families. That's really what it's about. I'm going to read this one again at some point in the future, because I think this is something quite distinctly of an American time. And I don't know very much about American history. A young woman going to the big city just to get some opportunity. She makes her way, but she doesn't have an easy time of it. That's a wonderful story. Quite good, but I need to read it again, because I think I read it very quickly. I enjoyed reading this very much. I recommend to you, make a list of challenging books that you want to read for next year and get down to it. Start reading. Don't put it off. Don't procrastinate. Set the time aside. Don't just come home and stare at your goddamn telephone. Make the time to read great books. Even though I wasn't happy with Oblomov, I'm still pleased that I've read it. It's not just about ticking boxes. It's also about giving it a try. Like, Oblomov is a great book. It's just, it's not particularly to my taste. It pleases me that I've read it. However, it's hard for me to recommend it because I found, those love bits awful. The other bits were quite good though, when it's just him being a very, tragically incapable man. That's fantastic. I've got my 2024 TBR. It's been on Patreon for a couple of months now. So the people who support me on Patreon, they've been able to see my 2024 TBR for months. And if you support my channel, you can see the stuff that I'm uploading very early sometimes. Sometimes I really have the ability to get stuff for my patrons only. Thank you all to my patrons. Thank you all for supporting me. It's not about the money. I think you guys know that. It's just about, if you like the YouTube channel and you want to support with a bit of money. But I do that because I think sometimes people want a little more. You like the videos, you want a bit more. Okay, there's Patreon over here as well. Oh, if you want a little bit more, there's also my collection of short stories. The Friend from Budapest, this is my writing. Please send me an email. There's a link below if you would like to buy one. It's $20. Get in touch with me and I'll mail you one, and you can send me the money and you can read my writing. Is it good? Yeah, I think my writing is quite good. It's signed, it's numbered. I only printed 100, so you will get one of 100, and when they're gone, they're gone. And to the people who've already bought one, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I hope you're happy to get this. Because I'm not going to print anymore. The Friend from Budapest Collector's Edition. Thank you very much for watching. Please take care. Please subscribe. Please, if you could help spread the word. I forgot to do the lottery for the book. $5 per month on Patreon gets you your name into this jar. I will send you, whoever wins, I'll send you one of the books that I reviewed today and a copy of my magazine. Cynthia, congratulations. Thank you very much for supporting me on Patreon. I'll send you one of the 10 books that I reviewed. Please get in touch with me and tell me which one you would like. If you would like the Tanizaki sisters, I'll send you that. It's a bit beaten up because, it's 500 pages. It took me a long time to read it, and the longer I read a book, the more beat up it gets. If you want Sister Carrie, that's a good choice. If you want, what was number 2? It's not a very beautiful edition, but if you want my copy of The Masterpiece by Zola, I'll send you that. Or any of the other ones. Even if you want the Murakami, if that's something you want to have a look at, just tell me which one. Please don't ask for The Bone People or Tristram, Shandy, because maybe I'm foolishly optimistic, but I imagine that I will finish those one day. Let me know, which one would you like to read? If you want Wuthering Heights, if that's the one you want, please just tell me. I'll mail it to you with a copy of my book, The Friend from Budapest. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Boy, isn't that a barrel of monkeys? Sie, Mama, Lord, Hell.